Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for stopping by. It really is appreciated. I'm super grateful for all the love that I have been shown both through YouTube and TikTok and Facebook, Instagram. I just am super amazed at how well it's going. So I just wanted to say thank you first and foremost. Today I'm going to show you one of my more popular tumblers that has hit the groups. And it's a Mermaid scale tumbler. It's a 3D, so hand placing the scales one by one, and it has kind of a swirly effect and super sparkly. I'm super excited to show you guys. If you have any questions, let me know, leave them in the comments. Let me know what you guys might like to see on the channel. And if you're interested in a Mermaid scale tumbler, let's get started. So we're going to start off with a 25-ounce barrel tumbler from Makerflow Crafts that I've already sanded, washed, and spray painted a flat white from the 2X Rust-Oleum line. I don't think it matters if it's flat, gloss, satin, whatever. This is a double-sided tape. And then these are just scales I cut out of regular cardstock on my silhouette. I got the file on Etsy, so I will link it below. But you want to cut out a few more than you think you might need, just because once you're in a mode, it's kind of a pain to get up and have to go cut another sheet of them. But we're just going to start at the bottom here. And I start at the bottom so you can layer. The top layer will be overlapping to the bottom layer, and I'll show you what I mean here in just a minute. And this tape is super sticky, so you guys just take your time. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry about these wrinkles. You're just going to press them down. You're not even going to see them. And at the end, you don't have to really worry about overlapping it. Just get it as close as you can and then cut it to size so it's a little easier to work with. I go through and kind of take off a little bit of the backing, and some of the wrinkles that are kind of deep or maybe overlapped, I kind of try to peel the backing off and then use that backing to press down that wrinkle or whatever. So I just take one scale, and you're going to want to make sure that it's placed as close to perfectly up and down as you can. I don't know, for me it just kind of lends to that perfectly even fish scale look. I leave just a skosh of a line at the bottom so that I can get that epoxy down around there later, and then I just move on to the next one and I place them edge to edge. And this is very repetitive, but I personally think it's kind of soothing to just kind of get in a zone and keep going around. So I'm going to fast forward this through the rest of this row, and I'll be back in a minute. Now as we move into the second row, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this double-sided tape and going around, not worrying about these wrinkles because we're going to straighten those out here in a minute. As close to that first row of tape as you can, but it doesn't have to be 100% butting up against it. It's not going to ruin your project if you have any tiny gaps or anything. So, all right, so we're going to take the scales on this row and we're going to try to line it up about halfway down the two scales below it and kind of centered on that line. So I'll be able to get two more rows of scales on these two pieces of tape before I have to put any more tape down. And I'm going to fast forward this, otherwise this video is going to be like an hour and a half long. I went all the way around, all the way to the top with the last row overlapping just a little bit. And I'm gonna go through and cut off all these little tabs of the ones poking up. And I'm not worried about the exposed tape up here because I'm actually gonna do some glitter work at the top and the bottom of this cup. So after I get done cutting these all off, I'm gonna go through and just kind of press all the scales down. as much as I can. Just, I mean, obviously you don't want to do maybe every scale, but just go around and kind of press with your palms and make sure everything's good and stuck. Ah, the devil's glue, as a lot of people call it. I like it because I know it can get down deep into that cardstock and get a really good seal. I put a little bit into a Dixie cup or something like that just because I don't like to leave my big bottle open to dry out. So I'm going to use this makeup brush. I got it in a pack on Amazon. I'll leave a link to the pack in the description. So we're gonna take, and ultimately what we're doing here is we're sealing the cardstock because one, you don't want to seep up a whole bunch of epoxy by just letting it soak into your cardstock. Epoxy's kind of spendy. And two, it can actually brown underneath that epoxy. I've heard stories of people not sealing things properly and getting these brown spots. So I'm not entirely sure what causes that, but that's why I try to really do my best to seal this. And you want to get into all these little crevices. I kind of go back and forth, not like overly rigorously, just enough to get, because there are some little divots here and there on the cardstock, which is not going to be a problem because we're going to be painting it, but you definitely want to get this Mod Podge into it well enough. And even though we're going to do some glitter work, we want to make sure that we get a good seal on the top and the bottom rims of this cup with the Mod Podge. Again, we don't want any epoxy to seep under this and wind up ruining our project. I let this dry for about an hour and then went in for a second, let it dry for another hour, and went in for a third coat. I want this to be super good and sealed. After this third coat dries, I go in with Grape, Candy Pink, and Lagoon spray paints from the Rust-Oleum 2x line, and I just kind of make a swirly pattern, random pattern, and kind of blend it as well as I can. Let that completely dry, and then I'm going to mix Tack It over and over with about half and half mixture of water. Then we're going to take a makeup brush and put a pretty healthy coat of this mixture on here. You don't want it like super gobbed on, but you want to make sure that you get every part of the scales and in between the scales and just really get a good coverage here. And then I wash my brush off a little bit in that little cup of water and wipe it off really well. And then I'm going to go over this cup again just to kind of smooth out some of those lines from the Tack It and water mixture. I just try to make sure it's as smooth as I can here. And then I let this dry for about 20 minutes to a half hour and go in and do another coat and let that completely dry for about an hour. So now I'm going to move into some pigment powders from Woodies Goodies. I go through and take this little makeup brush, again from that same set as the other one, and I'm going to just kind of start lightly because, you know, you can always put more on, but you can't take any off, especially with this on that Tack It base. I don't want anything like super heavy in any one spot, so I'm just kind of blending and going around and just making it super random and like blending it over the lines a little bit. But I just absolutely love how much just of a subtle shimmer that this takes on in the light. Like, it is so pretty. It reminds me of like a seashell or what I would imagine a mermaid scale to look like. So I just continue on a little bit, like accentuating whatever parts of the pink that I want to do with this kind of light, almost white pinkish powder. And then I move into starting to accent the purple and move on to the teal and so on and so forth, just wherever I think that it might need an extra little shimmer of color. I did go pretty heavy with this one because I really loved the way that it blended the two colors together. So I will fast forward this and we will talk in a minute. You guys, doesn't that look so magic? Tell me that doesn't look like a seashell, like the inside of a seashell. So after I am done with the mica powders, I'm going to move into putting a super thin coat of epoxy on this, and I'm paying special attention to get up and around all of those shells, so I actually go back and forth. I am putting on a super thin layer of epoxy to be able to just sprinkle a little bit of epoxy, or excuse me, a little bit of glitter here and there along the top and along the bottom. Part of that is to accentuate the cup, and part of that is to cover those little spots on the top and bottom rim that still have a little bit of that tape exposed, just to be able to seamlessly blend it. My blender is broken. Hurry quick, what movie? So we are going to start with the glitter, and I'm using this beautiful opal. This is called Opal Ice mix from Grateful Glitters, and I'm just ever so slightly dabbing it on. I don't want this to completely overtake the pink. I just want to barely mask this top lip of this cup. So I'm just I'm aiming at the rim of the cup and just letting it kind of cascade down. I know that wasn't a great angle, so hopefully this one is a little better. But I've got my cup sometimes at like a 45-degree angle and sometimes a little bit more, just because this is a kind of a odd shaped cup. I wanted to get just a tiniest bit into the middle. So then I'm going to move into this really pretty purple. It's called DreamCatcher. It's actually a color shift glitter from Grateful Glitters. And I'm just hitting the very top rim. Again, I'm just starting to kind of map out where I'm going to have everything. I don't want full coverage at this point. I really want to make sure that we have a good blend between these colors on each side. So I'm just, you know, sometimes my cup is kind of at that 45-degree angle, and sometimes it's a little bit steeper, so I can drop down just a little bit more onto the middle. And I just kind of continue on. I go back and forth a little bit between the colors to try to get a really good ombre or blend side to side between all of the colors. So then I move into this amazing kind of a teal green called Dragon Scales. This is also from Grateful Glitters. And unfortunately, I didn't realize that my camera died. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to record the rest of glittering both the upper and the lower, but hopefully I got enough in there that it makes some sense to you guys. You can see here that the glitter is just kind of sparse, but just enough to kind of camouflage that upper and lower rim. So we put a super thin coat of epoxy down to be able to do all that glittering. And I let that cure for 3 hours after I was done glittering, and then moved on to this part. This is the first of a 2-part step that's called a flood coat, and I'll be doing a video on that here pretty soon. But this is 30 milliliters of epoxy. I didn't use all 30 milliliters, probably like 20 or 25. You want it thick enough to get good coverage, but not so thick that it's dripping off. And then you're going to cover it just like you would any other glitter cup. I'll put a link to my video of how I epoxy cups up here. And then I let this spin for 4 to 6 hours. I think this one I did actually exactly 5 hours, and came back in with a second coat of about 20 milliliters of epoxy. And then I let that spin for 12 hours, and I did do a decal on this. So after that was done with the second set of the spinning, I lightly sanded the sides, sanded the rim, and put my decal on, and then I put one more coat of epoxy that was about 20 milliliters, and then one more coat after that that was about 15 milliliters to be able to get this cup completely smooth. And that was it. I am super happy with the way this turned out. I think that the subtle shimmer underneath and the little bit of glitter just all made it super magical and mermaid-like. So Thank you so very much for watching, and if you guys have any questions, if I left anything out, please don't hesitate to put them down in the comments section. I'm pretty active in the comments section. And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. It does help the YouTube algorithm. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. And anything you would like me to do a video on here in the near future, just let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.